Hi, my name is Landon, and we're going to be discussing in this presentation the Galaxy Note 7 crisis. So the points that I'm going to be covering is our introduction and the image repair theory. So the Galaxy Note 7 became a dangerous product after many reports of the device exploding in people's possessions. The point of the image repair theory in this discussion is that we can fully understand how the organization of Samsung was able to respond to the crisis. We should explore this case and pinpoint the causes of the crisis and take a deep dive on how the company decided to respond to the public during the time of this crisis. The goal of this discussion is also to review the issues involved in the crisis and how Samsung was able to respond to the crisis. The problems involved in this crisis were that the phone's batteries were overheating, causing them to explode. The theory ties to the response and solutions that Samsung took to prevent the phones from exploding in people's homes, cars, hands, etc. And also, the focus on this theory to the crisis falls in the lines of the actions Samsung takes to the community of how they plan to give the people the product they deserve and how they plan on preventing future products from having the same issue. And then the solution that Samsung did during this time was that they gave everyone either the same phone, brand new, or another device from their brand. They also stated that they would investigate uh, where they get their batteries from because of the crisis being extremely dangerous as it is.
So, with the fiery Galaxy Note 7, this crisis was unique in that when it started, it wasn't one singular crisis. It was multiple events happening where people's phones were exploding or overheating. And that was a huge part of this crisis. It wasn't something as simple as there's one event, you respond to that one event. There was multiple people involved over a long period of time. And as this quote states, IRT, image restoration theory, was not developed specifically for crisis communication, but is applicable because a crisis is a reputation threat. Samsung was in a threat of people no longer not just wanting to buy that particular phone, but any products that Samsung had, whether it's different phones or any other type of devices. They were in jeopardy of losing customers in all areas. And so for the timeline in August 19th in 2016, that's when the phone was first released. And then about a week later, on August 24th, that's where reports were coming in that phones were exploding. Then in September 2nd, there was an announced investigation. Samsung was now starting to take the steps needed to try to solve this crisis. On the 15th of September, Tim Baxter, who's the president and COO of Samsung, he created a video, posted that on YouTube, which was a great response strategy, letting the public know he hears their concerns, he knows what's going on, and he wants people to know we are handling it and we're not creating products like we should. And so he made that clear. And then on the 27th of September, customers were able to start replacing the Galaxy Note 7 with a new one. And so it's at this point, they hadn't completely got rid of the phone. People, if they had a phone that seemed to be having a lot of problems, they would turn that in and get a new one. But then, of course, later on October 12th, they had to stop selling the phone completely. And not only that, but they were telling people whether your phone is having issues or not. If it's a Galaxy Note 7, send that phone back in. We'll replace it with a completely different phone. And so throughout this whole process, Samsung was being very clear that they're taking care of the issue. But of course, one problem is because it's so many different people being affected in different areas, it was a crisis that did take long, but they were continually effective on making sure they're handling the situation.
My name is Becca Melenis, and I'm going to discuss the response analysis that Samsung had. Um, Samsung's initial response from the CEO stated that the reports of spontaneous battery combustion are confirmed. We need an immediate full-scale product halt and repair, expressing the concern that initial instruction of how to deal with the public safety concern. 5 days after that recall, Samsung then initialized and moved into their apology. Um, they took that mortification and publicly apologized on January the 23rd, 2017, proving that they can earn back the trust of their customer base. Starting with that evasion on September 22nd or September 2nd in 2016, they were finger pointing and showing that the issue was with the battery supplier, not with their company themselves. They went in to take corrective action on in January of 2017, where they began to implement a broad range of internal quality and safety processes and brought in their 8-point battery safety check. Using Benoit's image repair theory, they moved from evasion to correction to mortification through this entire process. They showed that action of putting that 8-point safety check into place and putting that in place in January of 2017. The COO then expressed his sincere apology and gratitude to Galaxy Note 7 customers, and that proved to earn back the trust of the Samsung customer base. Now, while Samsung's initial response was slow and a bit flawed, they did ultimately recover their reputation with their customers by pivoting to radical transparency and implementing that 8-point safety check for their batteries and using both corrective action and mortification to rebuild their customers' trust.
So my name is JD McLeod. I'm going to discuss the methods used by Samsung and kind of wrap it up with a conclusion. The methods used, they showed accountability from the start. They were a little slow with it, but they finally did show their accountability. They were proactive and never stopped moving forward throughout the crisis, whether it be from investigations or experimentation. They were still, and feedback from the consumer base, they were still moving forward throughout the process, thoroughly investigating the causes. So they did find that the biggest causes had to do with the batteries. At that time, we were switching from an alkaline battery to lithium ion batteries, and they weren't really prepared on how to handle that battery with their device. They brought in new quality checking measurements that kind of made sure that they didn't skip any steps and that their quality control stayed at a priority level that was acceptable to the consumer. And then they improved their overall process by bringing in new procedures and policies that protected them and their devices and the customer overall from getting hurt in the future. And in conclusion, Samsung went above and beyond with this endeavor. I tie this up to being a little bit more on culture than it necessarily technology or uh, knowledge set. Here in America, we as Americans, we have a problem with a product. We throw it in the garbage and get a new product. But the Asian culture seems to go a little more in depth as to why and how things went the way that they did. And so the first thing they did was they accepted full responsibility. They acted quickly to reduce, repair, and implement new policies and procedures. And not only did they improve their safety standards, but they set a new bar for others. And I'm a firm believer that they used these uh, when setting this bar the way that they did. It showed other companies how to properly handle situations, but also how not to get in these situations. That's one reason why Apple has been so successful. But this also the reason why Samsung has come back and been as successful as they've been They strive to find out the root causes. They brought in third-party investigators to figure out exactly what was causing the battery to overheat, catch fire, possibly explode. They communicated effectively with their customer base. In 2016, I remember every night on the news they covered this story, and Samsung was coming out with new and more information almost nightly. They communicated effectively with their customer base to let them know that they weren't going to have this issue anymore. They were going to get it fixed, and there wasn't going to be an issue anymore. Finally, they applied the learnings to future projects, and again, they set this bar for other companies worldwide. And this is kind of seen when you look at companies like HTC who had problems. They never really addressed their problems, and now we don't hear about phones or other devices made by HTC. Um, then again, you look at how they set the bar. Companies like Apple are way above there because they took and learned from this situation. They use this research even to this day with the new devices coming out. The S26 lineup coming in January. The big talk is because they're going from the old lithium ion to silicon carbon batteries that they don't want to have a repeat of the Note 7. And so that is why and how Samsung handled this situation as a company.